Welcome to From the Shed End podcast, episode 32, with myself, T-Dot, and Theo, as always. How you doing?
Yeah, not bad, thanks. I've just had my double espresso, so I'm ready to talk everything Chelsea now. How are you? How are you
Yeah,
doing?
you're ahead of me. I haven't had any sort of caffeine today, which is probably why I'm slow and just not up to speed with things. But no, I'm good. I'm good. Obviously, we've had a bit of a break. We normally do our midweek one, which has come a bit later in the week. But yeah, I'm good. Good results. Obviously, we can talk about Norwich earlier in the week, or the weekend, last weekend. Carabao Cup action Tuesday, I think it was, against Southampton. We can cover that today as well. And obviously, we're going to look forward to Newcastle. Gutted I'm not going. I tried to get tickets to St James's Park. It's still on my bucket list of stadiums to attend. So I'm gutted I haven't got there. So yeah, let's start at the very beginning because I think obviously brilliant result against Norwich. We both kind of called it was going to be an easy game, but we kind of got it completely wrong. I think I went for 4-0. I think you might have said 3-0, I
Yeah,
think.
3-0, I said, yeah.
You was obviously at the game. You had a really good seat by the looks of it as well. So just give me your thoughts on the game.
Yeah, I mean, it was kind of, we were making those comparisons to Liverpool, how Liverpool were playing, and we were kind of saying we want to be playing like Liverpool, that having those comfortable wins, when they were beating Norwich, Watford, and those teams 3-4-0, 5-0. And yeah, we went out and we did that finally. It was a great game, really great game, and 3-0 up at half time is what we've been asking for as well, to have a comfortable second half. And then when Ben Gibson got the red card, it almost felt like I felt sorry for Norwich at that point, because you just knew that we'd carry on scoring and we'd be relentless. But it was a good game. I think it was what we needed. And as well, looking at that top of the Premier League table, it's so tight at the moment. And it could be one of those seasons where goal difference may make a difference. You never know. I always say that it's best to score as many goals as you can. So having 7 goals and a clean sheet at home is really good. And yeah, it felt like the right lineup as well in terms of the players who started. It's about a week ago now, so I'm trying to remember the exact 11 that started. But I think Christensen was rested. Havertz
Yeah,
started. I
I've
mean,
got it here. Yeah,
yeah,
Mendy, Reece James, Trevor Chalobah, Thiago Silva, Rudiger, Ben Chilwell, Kovacic, Jorginho, Mason Mount, Hudson-Odoi, and Kai Havertz up front.
yeah. And I think I just wanted to touch on Hudson-Odoi. I thought he was fantastic. We talk a lot about him maybe fighting his way back into the starting 11. And now with the Werner and Lukaku injuries, it's his time to step up. And boy, did he step up against Norwich. He was playing his more natural position, behind the striker. And he was absolutely fantastic. I thought it was Kovacic's ball to Hudson-Odoi. And he still had to create that space for himself for his goal. And he did that fantastically. And he kind of made a brilliant assist for Havertz in the Malmo game in midweek before. And then against Southampton, he started as a right wing back, which I still think he does a good job, but it's not his natural position. But I thought he was fantastic. And then Ben Chilwell, once again, it's almost like, can we just give him the number 9 shirt now? Because I think he's the first player, I think I put a tweet up, first player since Eden Hazard in 2016 to score in 4 appearances in a row in the Premier League for Chelsea. So if you go back to not a bad stat at all for a left back as well. I'm quite impressed by that. So I think if you go back to the Aston Villa game at the end of last season, then it's the Southampton at home game, the Brentford away, and now Norwich at home. But yeah, fantastic result, 7 goals, very entertaining, and congratulations as well to Mason Mount, who finally got his first professional hat-trick as well.
Yeah, it was definitely a game that, I mean, we did sort of call it correct because I think we said it was going to be an easy game. We said it was going to be relatively easy for us. We obviously, anyone who's watched Premier League football will see how Norwich have played this season, and it's not been the best football. They are struggling, obviously, and it continued. I thought it was interesting because I felt, especially going off the back of a Malmo victory, the way that we played, that creativity, that freedom that we've, as some Chelsea fans have been asking for, to take that game into the Norwich game was probably the best thing, to have those 2 games back to back, to be able to do that. And another thing that I thought was really key was not having Lukaku in the team, which I felt, obviously you don't want to see any of your players injured, but I think having Lukaku out the team, it allows that false 9 again, that thing that worked for us last season. We have to look at how we played well in the Champions League and even in some parts of the Premier League as well, how we played without that false 9 all last season, and it did work for us. I just think, yes, we don't get enough goals, in that number 9 position as with an out-and-out striker, but we get goals elsewhere amongst the team. You just mentioned Ben Chilwell getting 4, back to back. Callum Hudson-Odoi, I think it's a strange one with him because I think he's a player that it's a shame. There's players probably ahead of him, which is why he's never really had a decent run in the the starting 11. And I think had he got that, at some point, even when going back to when Frank Lampard was there and Thomas Tuchel didn't really sort of fancy him, and he's always had that Bundesliga carrot being dangled in front of him as well at times. I think he needs a run of games. Ideally for us, he needs a run of games because he's proven that he can do it at right wing back. He, predominantly he's left sided. I think that's where he's more favourable. We've seen that in Malmo and against Norwich as well. But I just thought it was a brilliant performance overall. I thought Reece James, there's always this debate about Reece James and Trent and Aaron Wan-Bissaka, who's the best right wing back or right back. For me, it is Trent and Reece James. I think we can have more than one. Doesn't have to be just a number one. I think we can have 2, and I think they're both arguably just as good. But even the fact that Reece James defensively for me is a brilliant defender, but going forward he scores goals as well. I mean, that goal he scored against Norwich, it's not easy.
Striker's finish. It was a striker's finish. Yeah,
you've got to be calm on the ball. You've got to get the flight of the ball. You've got to get that right as well. And to loft it over the keeper the way he done was brilliant for me. One thing I wanted to ask you, because I think, again, we can kind of touch on that when we talk about Southampton, was Mason Mount. And there was a lot of criticism, of his penalty taken. And that was almost raised again against Southampton in the Cup. But do you think he is... I mean, Reece James looks a brilliant penalty taker. I'll probably have him as first choice if we haven't got a Lukaku or an Alonso or Jorginho. But Mason Mount's penalty taking's been questioned a few times now, I think.
Yeah, I'm remembering. I think he missed the deciding one in the shootout against Spurs in the Cup last season. He missed it. The first one that had to be retaken, and I still think this kind of keeper coming off his line thing is slightly harsh at times. But and then he missed it in the Cup against Southampton on Tuesday. But it takes a lot of confidence to step up in the first place. If you've got that confidence there, it means that you should be ahead of other players in the first place, because you don't want a player that's low on confidence stepping up to take the penalties. Then you also saw Barkley, ask Mount, can I take the second penalty after it was, retaken? And sometimes when a penalty is retaken, it plays in the player's mind, and the keeper maybe it will have more of an idea of where to dive this time. But I don't know. I do think Mount should be below Jorginho and Lukaku in the list of penalty takers, maybe even behind Werner, potentially if Werner's in the starting 11.
Yeah.
But with all those players that they were on the pitch against Norwich, it makes sense, I suppose, for Mount to step up. And maybe he had in the back of his mind that he could maybe grab another after for the hat trick. But then after seeing some of those penalties taken by the likes of Reece James, Alonso even, Chilwell, where they just smashed it into the bottom right corner with their left foots, I'm starting to think, should we maybe be having a defender step up to take them? So yeah, there's still that big penalty debate, but I think Tuchel has to kind of, control which players take it, and you don't want to be kind of seeing players snatch the ball off others to take the penalty. That's the last thing you want. Yeah. But if Mount's comfortable taking them, and he's got the confidence to take them, then let him carry on.
Yeah, I agree 100%. Just before we move on, I wanted to talk about Hakim Ziyech as well, who again has sort of got mixed opinions online. I think a lot of people are saying that we've probably seen the best of him in a Chelsea shirt now. And for me personally, I don't think, again, he's very much like Callum Hudson-Odoi, but for different reasons. Obviously, his is more down to injuries, but I just don't think he's had a run of games where we can judge Ziyech on what we expect him to do. I don't think he's had that time at Chelsea to do that. But would you agree with what I suppose the masses of, I hate using that word, but the Twitter media, social media, what they're saying about Ziyech, that he's probably not what we need at Chelsea?
I'm very mixed about Ziyech because I know he's got such a high potential. We saw that at Ajax. We saw that in pre-season. We saw that in the Super Cup. But at the same time, as you mentioned, he's not consistently getting the game time. He needs to prove that, that worth and that quality that he's got. And then when he does play, at the times we have seen him play since pre-season, it's just his body language seems a bit off. He seems a bit lazy. Tuchel mentioned, I think in last week's press conference, that he's still carrying that shoulder injury, kind of. So that may be a factor to why he's not performing to the level that he should be. But then again, I just know he's a quality player. He's got an amazing delivery. He's got an amazing left foot. It's like a magic wand at times. But it's just whether he can apply that consistently to his football. And I do think from what we've seen this season, he should be, he shouldn't be starting ahead of the likes of Loftus-Cheek, the likes of Mount, the likes of maybe even Werner. But I think he's a good option, a good squad player to have. But maybe come next summer, if these injuries keep kind of plaguing his game time, and also he's not really applying himself properly when he does get the game, the time on the pitch, then you start to look maybe a loan to the likes of AC Milan or something like that, which I think was mentioned last summer. But we have to remember this is, Ziyech when Pulisic is out of the team as well. So when Pulisic does come back, I think he'll fall like even further behind the pecking order. But I'm very mixed about Ziyech, really, really mixed. So it's quite hard to give an opinion right now. But I just kind of want to see him, almost a bit less lazy and apply himself a bit more when he does get the time on the pitch.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. I personally, I think he's, I think judging him after this season is probably the best thing to do. I think if he gets back to a level of fitness that's acceptable, or he can play a run of games, then judge him at the end of the season. I think he's got bags of talent. I think we wouldn't have signed him otherwise. And I'll be honest, I haven't really watched many Ajax games when he was there. So the only ones I probably did get to see was when he played against Chelsea, and he ran the show. So, and he's done it like you said, Super Cup. I think back to the preseason games, some parts of early last season as well. He came back and he was a very good player. He's a good player. So there's a player in there. I think it's just getting the best potential out of him as well. But one thing I wanted to mention, we haven't mentioned, and you did post about it, was Edouard Mendy's save. It wasn't even with his hands. It was almost a last-ditch tackle from a world-class centre-back. It was brilliant. It just goes again to add and support what we've said about Mendy over the last couple of weeks, how brilliant he is in goal.
Yeah, I mean, it also goes to show what a fantastic goalkeeper he is. Against Norwich, he probably didn't even touch the ball a single time. I can't really remember him pulling off a save or doing much, throughout the game. And then that one moment, I think a small defensive mistake, maybe from Chilwell, I forgot who it was, allowed, I think it might have been Sargent or Norman through. And then he kind of just threw himself in front of the ball, stretched. That's what you need a tall keeper for, to kind of pull off those saves. And he kept his clean sheet and fantastic save, and showed that he was always alert throughout the 90 minutes. So, world-class goalkeeper as always.
And was it a red card? Was it a second yellow?
For Ben Gibson?
Yeah.
100%. Yeah. And I'm also actually quite shocked that the player who pulled off the handball didn't get sent off actually as well.
Yeah, that's a good point.
I was reading about, it's a goal line. He's preventing a goal in a way for his hand, not so far off from what Reece James did against Liverpool.
It was almost a really good save when you put it down to how well he did.
So you do wonder if that ball was going in the back of the net had he not pulled his arm up. So I think Norwich got, I want to say, lucky there, but at the same time they still lost 7-0. So I think it doesn't really make a difference to the scoreline. But definitely a red card for a second yellow for Ben Gibson. And it was a stupid challenge when you're already on a yellow. And that's what I'm starting to think, like, are these players even playing for Daniel Farke anymore? So, there seems to be some kind of friction.
I think they know that, they're sort of here just to collect 6 points throughout the season. Like you mentioned, there's obviously tension there as well amongst, Daniel Farke and the players. But I think I said it maybe on a previous episode or on another podcast, but they're just not, he's just not a Premiership manager for me. He's someone that I can see, doing really well in the Championship, but just when it comes to the Premiership, he's just not at that level that I think you need to be. But it's a shame for him because I think, Norwich they've got some really good players there. Watching them against us and also in some of the other games. Individually, they've got some good players, but as a team, they're just not. No. They just don't gel together. So, I think they're down and out. But seven goals, like you said, a clean sheet, goal difference may come into play come the end of the season. So we're going to have to take that. But let's move on to Tuesday, which I thought was a very different game. I think he was there again at the Bridge for this one as well. But yeah, it was a strange game, such a strange game. But give me your thoughts. What did you think about Southampton and our near miss of losing out on the cup?
I mean, it felt almost like a carbon copy of the Villa game that we played in the cup, the first round of the at Stamford Bridge. And again, it was kind of one of those games where a lot of changes in the lineup maybe favoured, Southampton to get that goal. I did think they would score. I think I predicted 2-1 on the app, and it ended up being 1-1 and then a penalty shootout. I think Kepa now is loving these penalty shootouts. He knows he can be the hero. He knows what it takes to pull off those saves. But yeah, I think it was a relatively comfortable game. I think Salah was fantastic. It's about time, that he stepped up and he was great. Maybe slowly getting used now to English football and has had the right amount of training around his teammates. And he was unlucky not to score a few. I think Fraser Forster pulled off 3 saves from Sal Niguez shots. Havertz got his goal. I'm pleased for him because we're going to need him to score more often now that Werner and Lukaku might be out for a couple more weeks. But it was still, really nervy finish. Really, really nervy finish. It could have easily been a Southampton victory at the end, where if it wasn't for Kepa pulling off, I think 3 saves from corners towards the end. And I think the lineup, maybe I think Tuchel said after the game that Aspi and Loftus-Cheek got injured in training the day before, and Christensen was coming back, I think, from dental surgery, meaning that he was still in pain and had to miss out. And he said those were 3 players that would have started the game. I think so. Maybe Loftus-Cheek probably for Barkley, Aspi for maybe Hudson-Odoi or Reece James. I think Reece James was playing as one of the 3 centre backs, and then maybe Christensen would have come in as well because he didn't play against Norwich. So maybe that's why we kind of looked a bit like it was a team put together. Last set minute. I was quite surprised by the lineup, if anything. Yeah. But at the end of the day, we're through now. It's going to be a tough one because I think the game is going to be quarterfinals on December 20th, crammed between, a congested festive period of fixtures. But, again, I always say we've got the squad depth. We've got this is why we have this type of squads to compete across all the competitions. But it was a nervous game. Getting used now to penalty shootouts at Stamford Bridge, weirdly enough. So, but yeah, I did enjoy it towards the end. I enjoyed it when we were celebrating at least.
It was good. It was a good game. It's strange because I did going into it. I did have a bit of nervousness, maybe because, like you mentioned, I didn't expect to see Malang Sarr starting. So maybe Christensen would have come in for Malang Sarr or played ahead of Malang Sarr. Sal Niguez, I thought was brilliant. I thought he was, like you mentioned, he's probably got that sort of understanding of the game a bit more in sort of the English where the English game's played now as well. But I thought Marcos Alonso was superb. I thought, we spoke about him before in terms of, having that sort of luxury of having Chilwell and Marcos Alonso as your left backs or your left wing backs. But he was probably outstanding for me. Obviously, Kepa was brilliant as well. But it was a game that, again, you mentioned Kai Havertz. It was a game that we needed players like Kai Havertz to step up, because I don't think realistically where we're going to get a goal from, I didn't really see it. So I think someone like Kai Havertz stepping up, he done his job. He needed to do that. Like you mentioned, he's going to have to do that a lot more now as well. So it was a good game. I thought, Che Adams, Armstrong for Southampton played really well. Someone else stood out for me now. I can't remember who it was.
I think their centre-back was fantastic. Lianco, number 4.
Lianco, yeah.
He was brilliant. I didn't know who he was until I kind of the next day I watched the highlights and I saw the name on the back of his kit. I think Brazilian centre-back they signed this summer, but he was fantastic. I thought it was that Stevens guy but it was Lianco, yeah.
I thought Forster was good as well. He pulled off some good saves. Really good goalkeeper anyway, but I thought he was good. So credit to Southampton, because I think, they definitely gave us a game. And like you mentioned, those penalties, we're getting used to them now. But I think, it's Reece James. I don't know, he doesn't strike me as someone who can take a penalty, but he always just steps up and, effortless penalty. But the way he does it, it's just so brilliant. But I think the thing with the Carabao Cup, and which kind of bugs me a lot with some fans, is they don't really necessarily keep it as, in their thoughts. They just see it as the Carabao Cup. But, when we get to the semi-finals, and if we get to the final, and if we win it, everyone's going to be cheering on Chelsea, and we're all going to want to win the cup. So, I think we've got to look at these kind of results and just take them as a really good victory, regardless of how we went through. People call it the Mickey Mouse Cup or whatever they call it these days, but it's still a trophy. It's still going to mean something to these players at the end of the season if they win it as well. So, City going out as well. You look at the teams that are left. I think we mentioned earlier this morning, Liverpool is probably our closest in terms of, rivals or, teams that might give us a bit of, I don't know what the word is I'm looking for, but an issue, a problem in terms of trying to win the cup. But you look at all the other teams, even, Tottenham, beatable. Trying to think who else is in it now. Arsenal, I think
Arsenal, West Ham, Sunderland.
Yeah, they're teams that we can beat them on our day. And like you mentioned, we've got depth. We've got a lot of depth in that squad now. We've got players returning from injury. Pulisic, obviously Werner, Lukaku as well. 3 big names out. We've got 2 brilliant goalkeepers, 2 brilliant left backs. We've got Reece James or Aspie, right wing back. We've got a luxury of midfielders. It's ours to lose. It really is. Liverpool's a brilliant team. They've got world-class players as well, but I want them in the next round. I said that this morning. I want them in the next round, not just because it's local to me, but I think if we can knock them out in the quarterfinals, what a brilliant way to win. If we can knock out Liverpool 2 rounds before the final, why not?
Yeah, it would definitely. Cause I think we haven't won the League Cup. We haven't even been in the League Cup. I know we won in League Cup final in 2019. We haven't won it since 2015 when we beat Spurs at Wembley. And it just goes to show that if you do take this tournament seriously and you actually, apply like you play a decent team and you kind of go, you feel the team that can win the games like we saw this season, I suppose, with the depth we have, then you can easily win it. We saw City have won it the last 4 years in a row. And that's because they've actually, they've taken it seriously. I think Tuchel's that type of manager that I think he even said in his press conference, like, regardless, we've got an issue now. December, we've got another fixture in the calendar, but we want to kind of win every single one of our games. We want to compete in every single tournament, and that's what he's doing at the moment. So I think regardless of it's Liverpool, Tottenham, Arsenal, West Ham, I think we will go out, on the 20th of December, we will play a team that will want to win that game. And it's also players that maybe don't play as regularly, so want to impress, so a reason more to want to win. But yeah, I'm pleased that we've qualified, and there was a big crowd of Southampton fans as well, so it made it even more wanting to win. Leaving the stadium, I think they were throwing like water bottles on Chelsea fans and all that. So I was like, you saw losers. I'm glad that we've won now. So it made it a bit more sweeter.
Yeah, definitely. So who's your prediction for the next round? Who do you think will be facing? I think the draw's on Saturday morning, which is so strange. It's Saturday. It's normally after the last round of games, but who's your money on for us to get in the next round? Or who do you like? Who would you like, actually? Better question.
I mean, I'd like Sunderland at home. It'd be an easy fixture. We can rotate even more potentially in the squad, but I think we'll get West Ham away.
Oh, I think they're the dark horses. I really do. I'd rather avoid them until the final, because I think they're playing some amazing football, not just in the Premier League, but in Europe, in the Europa as well. The way they played against Man City as well, and they didn't even have their strongest team out as well. Yeah. So for me, they're due something soon. Obviously they're building on this Europa. They got European football last season. The next stage of that now is to get a trophy, and this is probably arguably the easiest trophy out of the the 3 of them to get. True. So, or 4 in their instance, because obviously they can still win the Europa League. But yeah, I want to try and avoid them. I'd love Liverpool. I think if we played Liverpool in the Carabao Cup, maybe not at Anfield, actually, maybe at Stamford Bridge. I think I prefer to play them at Stamford Bridge, but if we can get them, I think we can beat them. I really do. I think they're beatable. If I'm honest, I don't think Klopp would potentially put out his strongest team. I think he would, he likes to use the youngsters like he did last night as well. He plays a lot of the youngsters, or a Minamino, a Dickov Origi, who scored a brilliant goal, to be fair, last night. But I think if he plays those sort of players, Nico Williams, even if we put up a Ross Barkley or a Malang Sarr in centre back, it's a winnable game. It's a winnable game.
Yeah, Ross Barkley will want to score against Liverpool as well, I feel, given
He
his
loves to
Everton
score.
roots. Yeah.
He does love to
But
score. I think he scored a screamer against
yeah,
Liverpool, of course, didn't he?
FA Cup ran
Yeah,
across the pitch. Yeah.
yeah.
But also, I was thinking, should we get to the semi-finals? There potentially might be Billy Gilmore back in January as well, which
That's
means
a very good
another
shout.
midfielder that could maybe play a role, or maybe he'll be sent back out on loan. But that's another option in
Very,
midfield
very good
potentially.
shout. Very good shout. Very good shout. So, as I said, the draw's on Saturday. I'm not going to mention where, but if you know, you'll know. I hate the program, so I'm just not going to give it any sort of credit. But I think the program starts at 10:30 in the morning, so I'll just keep an eye out. But yeah, I'm sure we'll talk about the draw in our next episode as well. Whoever we've got, whether it's Liverpool, Sunderland, or West Ham, but we'll talk about that in the next episode. But let's go to Saturday, 3 p.m. Big game. This is actually a really big game. As much as we're probably expected to win, it's probably the worst time to play Newcastle United, in my opinion.
Yeah, it's not, is it? It's like they still got the same squad, but there seems to be a bit more energy, and the fans are, a lot more lively than they were when Steve Bruce was there and Mike Ashley was there. So it's a bit of especially away from home. St.
Yeah.
James's Park is never an easy ground to go to, regardless of the form of Newcastle, especially for Chelsea. We don't have the best of records there. I think we won there last season relatively comfortably. But I think all the seasons before, it was kind of very, very hit and miss. So I'm quite nervous for it. 3 p.m. as well. It won't be televised in the UK, so I'm going to have to find it a dodgy stream, maybe, watching it, probably with a slight
You
lag.
and millions of us as well.
Yeah, millions of
Millions
us watching in the UK, and with a lag as well, which will be me refreshing Twitter to know if we've scored, missed the penalty or whatever. So I'm slightly nervous. And I think San Maximan is probably the player that I'll pick out for Newcastle, along maybe with Callum Wilson, who will provide them with their biggest threat in front of goal. I do think that if we you mentioned it before, probably the football we played against Norwich with no Lukaku and no Werner was probably the most fluid football we played all season. So if we kind of replicate that against Newcastle, then I'm quite confident. But then we've kind of, we're so used to keeping clean sheets. But I think Saturday could potentially be, I can see Newcastle scoring, in front of their fans, which makes it a bit more nervy. They're still yet to win this season, which is the one thing that I'm thinking maybe gives us a bit more hope. But then again, they're probably due that win soon, which makes me even more nervous. So, it's the same group of players, though. It's the same group of players that haven't been performing all season. So we'll see. But I'm quite confident. I think we'll win, but I'm still quite nervous. It's going to be quite a tight one.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's I think it's going to be a very sort of strange game. I think because there's always that sort of when you play teams that are at the bottom of the league, especially when they haven't won a game as well, you always expect them to pick up points somewhere, and we are usually that team where they pick the points up and we give them a nice 3 points, which if that happens and we do lose, then it's not crisis time, but it's definitely, it shouldn't be a team we shouldn't be losing to them. You mentioned it just before, it's the same team that was under Steve Bruce. I just think the difference, I watched them against Tottenham and they lost. They crumbled near the end of the game, but just the fans, just hearing just that difference that wasn't there when Steve Bruce was there. That's like a 12th man at times, and a ground like St James's, which is fully capacitated all the time. It's never, regardless of who the manager is or when Mike Ashley was there. It's a ground that you don't want to go to when things like you could be playing them and they score a hat-trick against us or something. So it's going to be tough. I think, like I mentioned before, Lukaku not being in the team, I think is probably almost a blessing in disguise. I don't think that game would suit him anyway. And I think going off the back of, like you just mentioned, Malmo, Norwich, those two games where we've had that fluidity and been able to have that a bit more creativity and that freedom to play a bit more. That false nine works for us. I just think it's something that we need to obviously utilize now. We've got no choice, but I think, like you mentioned, Saint Maximum, I think for me is one of the I mean, again, I watched him against Tottenham and he's all over the place. He's in defence. He's, running the ball straight through. He takes on players as well. So I think our centre backs are going to be in for a tough day. I think we, we may not see sort of Reece James or whoever's on the right wing back, left wing back getting forward as much as well, because I think on the counter they are really, really good. So that worries me as well. But they haven't won a game all season, so that again, like you mentioned, that kind of makes me feel. I think they've conceded like 20 goals. That their defensive record isn't the best. So I look at those kind of things and I think we should be winning. We shouldn't be losing against Newcastle. But it's like that new manager syndrome. Although they haven't technically got a new manager, it must feel like that for them, knowing that they've got this, these new owners in who are willing to spend. Players are going to want to play for the new owner. The new owner is going to be sitting in the stadium. They're going to actually want to play football and give apart from John Joe Shelby, who, as I think in the Tottenham game, lasted about 20 minutes or 15 minutes. So, but yeah, I think it's going to be a close game. It's going to be really close. I think we'll win. I think it'll be 2-1. I agree with you. I think they'll score maybe from a set piece, something's clumsy. But yeah, I think we'll win 2-1. And I think we've got to, because I think Liverpool play at 3:00 as well. So it's going to be, as much as I don't like watching other teams and what they're doing, but we can't really afford to slip up against a team like Newcastle.
No, it's so close at the top of that table that, these are the type of games that we need to be winning if we want to stand a chance of staying in that top spot. And I do think it's kind of almost us trying to overthink it, with, Newcastle's change of, firing the manager, their new ownership. But at the same time, it's a game that we should be winning. I think they will score Newcastle, like I mentioned, mainly due to the fact that players maybe like Christensen, Aspi, Loftus-Cheek might not be fit for that game still. So that's maybe my play in Newcastle's favour, but we still have the quality to deal with to fill in those gaps should those players not make an appearance. And I'm going to have to agree with you with the scoreline. I think it's going to be 2-1. I made my predictions on the app this morning. I put 2-0 simply because we know we love those clean sheets. We keep them all the time. But I think this is the type of game that we will concede. Like you mentioned, probably some sloppy tap in from a set piece or something like that will go Newcastle's way, or maybe even some dodgy penalty that will be given. Yeah, but I think we'll win 2-2. I'm going to stick with 2-1, but it's going to be a really nervy, I think, last 10, 20 minutes like we saw against Brentford away, I think. So I'm not looking forward to it in a way. It's one of those games, unlike the Norwich one last weekend, I'm not looking forward to this one.
Yeah, and I think if we can get 3 points, then brilliant, because I think not just Liverpool, but I think City play at 3:00 against Palace, I think, as well. So again, I'm not watching sort of the table or what other teams are doing, but we just can't. I mean, this is a game, if Steve Bruce was in charge, we probably wouldn't even be saying half the things we're saying. We would be expecting 3 points because it's Steve Bruce in charge. It's the team that's there now. But that new lease of life in a club, sometimes it can just get you over the line. And you've got to remember as well, I think obviously Newcastle haven't played this week. We played against game Saturday, game Tuesday, and then a game Saturday. So yes, they're professionals. It's spread out nicely and evenly across the week, but they've had a nice long rest as well. So you think about it in those kind of terms as well. They might be a bit more fresher. They might be up for it a bit more, but not taking anything away from our club. I think we've got enough definitely to win. We should be beating them. I think they're bottom of the league, aren't they? I think, or 19th.
Joint bottom with Norwich or just above Norwich. Yeah,
I think they're joint with Burnley. I'm sure Burnley, Newcastle, Norwich. But
who we play next? Actually, Burnley after Newcastle.
Yeah, I mean these are games that, again, I hate using that word winnable or easy fixtures because there's no such thing. But they're games where we are not the underdog, and we should be going out there playing like we're not the underdogs. And I think we have to do that. We have to take the game to them. Ideally, in an ideal world, I'd love us to score 2 early goals, calm that sort. Because I think there'll be some nervousness. I think there'll be on both sides. I think Newcastle obviously will want to perform a lot better than they did against Tottenham. I think they got a draw, didn't they, last weekend against Palace? I think it was Callum Wilson scored for them. So they'll want to obviously perform better than they did against Spurs at St James's. So yeah, 2-1. I think we should win. I can't. It's going to be interesting to see who Tuchel plays as well. I think what starting 11 he goes with, because you do wonder, do you give Sounders a bit more game time because he did play really well against Southampton, or do you drop him again and bring in the usual suspects that are normally there? So it's going to be a tough one.
Yeah. Kante apparently was lacking some match fitness, but maybe back in time. So I don't think Tuchel right now, as we're talking now, has his kind of starting 11 set in stone for Saturday. I think it's completely going to be based on the next, today's training session and tomorrow's training session. and how well they train and who seems sharp for the game. Whether Loftus-Cheek, Aspie, and Christensen, those players that I mentioned who didn't feature in midweek with injuries, whether they're fit and ready to play on Saturday. So I don't think he's got our starting 11 in his mind, and we could potentially see the same kind of back line of or back three at least of maybe a Chalobah, a Sarr, and well, actually maybe not Sarr because we've got Rudiger and that Silva who can fill in. But I think I think Chalobah may feature again, which will mean I think 3 games in a row for him because he played against Norwich as well.
Yeah.
But again, the type of player that you look at him and you forget how young he is, and that this is his first season in the Premier League because he looks so comfortable and he looks so like he's been playing for Chelsea for many years, or at least in the first team for many years. So I'm not too worried about him playing again. But yeah, I think it would be good if we knew about those players who I mentioned being injured, if they're fit or not.
Yeah, and I'm sure we'll get that tomorrow, 1:30 at the usual Friday press conference from Thomas Tuchel. But yeah, so we're both agreeing it's going to be 2-1, which I don't think we've done on the podcast so far, or maybe we did last season. I can't remember, but 2-1's a good. I mean, I'll take 2-1 against them, and like you mentioned, Burnley as well. So it's going to be a good game. Hopefully, it doesn't ruin the Saturday night, which it tends to do if you lose on 3:00. You don't want to watch any football. But yeah, 2-1 for me, 2-1 for you. Any goal scorers you're going to go for? You're going to go for a Kai Havertz double?
I'll go for a Kai Havertz opener and a Chilwell. Let's go for Chilwell again. Can't stop scoring.
5-5 for Chilwell.
Yeah. Let's do that.
But yeah, it'd be brilliant if he can get another one. I think he's proven himself, hasn't he? He's proven that he's not just going to be bench warming for the rest of the season. He wants to play parts, and rightfully so as well. So a brilliant headache. I'm going to keep saying it on here. Brilliant headache for Thomas Tuchel to have. He's got a lot of headaches in certain positions, but we'll see. We'll see on our next episode if we're both still smiling after playing Newcastle and finding out who we've got in the Carabao Cup as well. But for those who are listening on Apple or Spotify or other streaming platforms as well, you can follow us on Twitter at From the Shed End, and on Instagram at From the Shed End with underscores between each of the words. And if you just give us a search on YouTube, From the Shed End, you should be able to find us. So like, subscribe, comment, interact with us. Tell us your thoughts as well. Tell us what you think about the Carabao Cup draw. Who do you think we're going to get? What do you think our chances are of going to the final, winning the cup as well? How important is it to win the cup? For me personally, it's a trophy, medals for the players, so I think it's important. But also give us your Newcastle predictions as well, and talk to us about Mason Mount. Should he be taking penalties? I think not, but I'm just one person of many. So this has been episode 32 of From the Shed End. Theo, as always, thank you for joining us. I know you enjoy doing it just as much as I do. And again, the content that you put on Instagram, I say this every week, but I'm going to carry on doing it. The content you do on Instagram and Twitter and everything is definitely appreciated. And if you haven't checked it out, make sure you do that at From the Shed End underscores between each of the words on Instagram. Check it out. There's a lot of content on Instagram. I'm sure you'll like it all on there as well. But this has been episode 32 From the Shed End podcast. Myself, T. and Theo. Thank you for listening.